So in this clip, inshallah, we are going to be talking about the economic conditions that were found in pre-Islamic Arabia. The economic condition of Arabia was characterized by an unequal distribution of wealth and unfair business practices. It was a society where the gap between the rich and the poor was so wide that there was no middle class. You would either find extremely rich people or extremely poor people, unfortunately. Money passed on through families. So if you were rich, you remained rich. And if you were poor, you just remained poor, unfortunately, again. Now, the question is, we know that Arabia was never rich in natural resources. Its soil was not very fertile, so farming was not possible. Not that it was impossible. We know that certain Bedouin tribes, they engaged in farming, but it was very rare. So majority of the times, this rich elite citizen of Mecca, he would either be a merchant or a trader or a money lender, right? And he either traded, as a trader, he either traded merchandise or he traded slaves. We've heard stories, like many stories, horror stories of how slaves were treated in pre-Islamic Arabia. The famous stories of Bilal radiallahu anh, Khabbab ibn al-Arat radiallahu anh, and then Sumayya radiallahu anha. All of them slaves in pre-Islamic Arabia, owned by rich Meccan men. Slavery was an economic institution for them. Male and female slaves. They were sold and bought like animals. Most of the times, these slaves, they didn't even have the worth of an animal. It was a huge part, slave trade was a huge part of their economy. For merchandise, their caravans, they traveled in summer to Syria and in winter to Yemen, right? Next, when we talk about business practices, I want to give you two examples. And these two are mentioned in the books of hadith in Sahih Bukhari. It's in one of the narrations of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, where he mentions how Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, and with Islam, these two practices that were prevalent in pre-Islamic Arabia in the Jahili society became forbidden. What were these two practices? Mulamasa and munabada. So what is mulamasa? Mulamasa is if you went to the marketplace and you wanted to buy a dress, right? You like something, you want to buy it. The seller tells you, as soon as you touch the garment, it's yours for so much. The deal is sealed. Like as soon as you touch it, it's not like you touch it to examine it. You're given that chance. No, you touch it and it's yours for so and so price. It's set. And the other kind of practice that was prevalent in that society was munabada. Munabada is where two people are exchanging goods, say garments again, all right? So when you throw it towards me and I throw it towards you, the deal is struck. That's it, it's done. What you notice is in both these scenarios, the buyer never had the chance to examine the merchandise he was buying. There was no inspection. That concept was not even there. So that's what made it unfair, and that's why Islam came and prohibited such business practices. And then finally, the system of interest that existed in that society. Again, something that Islam came and fought head on. The system of interest, it was designed in such a way that it was intended to make the lender richer and richer and the person who borrowed more poor. It was a system by which the principal, it kept doubling every time the person who borrowed could not pay it back. And when he could not pay it back, say he was never able to pay it back, then what was the consequence? The consequence was that either he would be put in jail, imprisoned, or he would become the slave to the lender. These were certain scenarios that existed in pre-Islamic Arabia as part of the economy of the society.